Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John's report is for the 30th, and well, you can see how it's starting. It began yesterday. We had the massive pre-market sell-off, and then, of course, people saw that as a great buying opportunity, right? At the highs, sure, go ahead. But the wheels kind of came off the bus with it, and you can see we're just filling that back in at this particular stage. Significant shift of the MBI white going back above. We had magenta cleanly above. Couldn't quite get the dip of orange below the red DOC, and that's is always problematic because you get that false lift view from it, and especially with no reset of steel coming from all the way up above, it's got to come down from below. This is that critical element of the shakeout. You know, you've got to get it to a positive, and this is what we talked about on the Nasdaq. Was the real serious concern is that as soon as you get close to that zero, if you don't get over it and make that hump, then no, it goes ugly fast, and that's why I said move to the 50% would be likely on that. Here you are. So well, we haven't got there yet, but it just points out that there's still plenty of room left for price to ease. Of course, you've got Trump announcing theoretically a new Fed chair. We'll see how that goes. But the Iran tensions, everything else. Trump's got to pick his battles. Of course, he's caved on the ICE situation in Minnesota and that because he needed to get some kind of a deal for the budget. They looks like they may do it. They probably may ramp up after they get approval, but all it's doing is delaying that. So it's just more of the same, pushing things down the road and not really going anywhere. Of course, the Fed basically just, opting out of doing anything from an assistance standpoint and keeping rates higher. And it really puts a drain on things, particularly when you're seeing this. And this is, that Iran situation, but this is a nightmare from an inflation standpoint, and the Fed's not going to be wrong because this will drive things towards that. So you've got the ongoing battles with Canada, blah, blah. It just, the narrative continues to cycle. Of course, Euro, yeah, it's a joke to even talk about it, but again, this is that idea that the political narratives are really driving a lot more than anything. And for as much as I've mentioned, gold on a massive tear, and that doesn't take much for people having to liquidate positions, and boom, yeah, that pretty decent fillback of some positive extremes, literally going all the way back to their early portion right there. So it's actually fairly healthy from that standpoint, but it also gives you an indication. You can take some pretty serious hammering, people wanting to always buy in on the jumps. It's like, no, you really want to buy in on the dips. Now, from this standpoint, you're almost back to cyan above red. Probably might happen by the end of the day, but you do have a full steel reset. But look at how far down you are. You've got to move back above the negative 13.5 to get that into positive territory. And again, you look at the same situation on silver. Nearly a 20% haircut in one day from people who are buying up at the highs, thinking that it was going to, 400 or whatever overnight. And I've always cautioned against these kind of views. The interesting thing is that crypto and that, like we've talked about, usually a placeholder for you hold on to it. And when the margins started getting called from, their regular equity positions, you've got to sell your gold, your silver, your extra assets, BTC, your Ethereum, whatever it is. And that's why they typically suffer when you would think that they're the safe haven. And it's not that they aren't, it's just they're usually there to park money just for these kinds of situations when the market goes sideways. And you can see it from an ETH standpoint as well. And none of this was too shocking here because at the end of the day, we saw a short cover rally taking place with magenta above, but as soon as magenta broke below, and it broke below with the 25, and when that happens, you're going to blow through all supports when you're below that 25. So once it took place, and then you're right at the, moving towards the 50%, boom, you're going to break that 50. And then sure enough, we ended all the way to the zero and then made completely new zeros. Ended up with a secondary spike, so a little bit more short covering, but as soon as that crossed over, and that's that sell-off that's taking place right now. So It's all pretty clean from that viewpoint. Nothing shocking, and of course, this is a dream come true for option players because they're throwing the book both sides of it. The puts got active, then they rip them with the calls and flip it all back, and everybody ends up zero position, and that's exactly what the dealers need. So that suits them just fine. We saw the Asian session had some weakness, but then the European session, they started getting all excited. Um, Actually, that's from long before. Here, let's go all the way to the first. This is where the current European session is right now, in the soft weakness right there. And then when we scroll back, you can see the trail off that led to the back and forth from there with the calls. And to me, it's not a surprise. This is what has to happen when you get one directional moves. You always have to have that higher volatility trade that goes back to a mean reversion, and that's what we're seeing more of. We expected it for this month, and I don't think it's going to get any softer anytime soon. Going into February, you got more of the same dynamic, and we knew this. Fine if they get the budget thing squared away completely, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think only part of it's going to get done, and you're going to continue to have the chaos trade. So that's just that. Indicators will be going out for February, so it's a must-have because to navigate this without, I don't know what people are doing because they're going to get creamed. That's a whole different story. Anyway, that's the long and the short of it. Anything relevant, I'll put it on our team chat. Have a good one. Trade well.